Hello, everybody. You're tuned in here to 107.9 FM, The Berg. Today in the studio, I have Benjamin Cheer, local full-time freelancing cinematographer. Benjamin has been working with a camera since a young age of 13. That's very impressive, Ben. Originally from Ottawa, too, but he came to Windsor, Essex area for university in 2018 to double major in communications, media, film, and psychology. Benjamin has also been working with film director Gavin Michael Booth, you might know him, as director of photography for our staff interviews for our docu-series Renaissance Radio, Amherstburg's new wave. Ben, welcome. How you doing?
I'm not too bad. That was quite the introduction, I have to say.
Oh, well, thank you. You know, we try our best here. We have, someone with your background and everything that you've done. We got to get it out there, and this is exciting. You're working with Gavin now. For those tuning in who may not know, what exactly is a cinematographer, and what does it entail behind the scenes?
Yeah, so a cinematographer is the person that, when you watch all those films, movies on Netflix, at the Cineplex, wherever that you love, they're the ones that are responsible for everything visual that you're seeing, whether that's the lighting in the shot, what's directly chosen to be in or out of the shot, how the frames are chosen, the lenses they choose, everything visual that comes back to the cinematographer, and that's their decisions.
And it's very important stuff, too. One of the movies that I think has great cinematography, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but James Bond movie Skyfall, I think it's beautiful. Have you ever seen that movie?
No, and I am actually, for a filmmaker, notoriously bad at not watching films, but that's something I've been correcting this year, getting into the theaters a lot more and starting to watch more. But I have I've seen the trailer. It is a stunning movie.
I wanted to talk to you about that on air. I think that's one that stuck out to me right away when I saw that movie, and that's what really got me into cinematography. And I think that's why I'm like, it's the most underrated part of films. So what you do is a very cool job, and obviously you're doing great if you're being picked by Gavin Michael Booth to help out, and you're making a name for yourself in that world. And also these list of achievements, you have a great list of achievements on a variety of films and awards you have won. Can you tell us about a few of your local projects?
Well, I a big list of achievements, yes, but I will say I'm just starting out. A lot of that is local, and I'm very proud of what I've done and been able to achieve. And of course, film is such a team sport. I can't take all the credit. It's the crews that I work with. But it's just the beginning for me. I hope to do more and hope to grow beyond our local scene. As for some of the local projects, there's been quite a few cool ones. I got to say the most recent one was a film called Proving Grounds that we did as part of the Windsor International Film Fest 48-hour Flick Fest, which is 48 hours to write, shoot, and edit a film. My director, John Strahl, on that did a phenomenal job, as well as our writers, and we ended up taking home 6 awards, 6 of the 12 awards, I believe, that were offered, one of which was my first ever Best Cinematography Award, which is super exciting because I've done that Flick Fest 4 times now, and so to finally be able to get that win was something I've been working towards, and that felt incredible. Another local project, or local-ish, is a doc on a MMA fighter named Ben Phillips, and this one we've actually partially been filming in Michigan as well. It's for an online course I'm enrolled in. Been working with some guys in Detroit, and Ben's story is super incredible. He basically fell into this rabbit hole of drugs that took over his life because of poor technique and poor self-care as a fighter. And then in turn, fighting was what brought him back out of those drugs and doing it clean, doing it healthy. So that's been an incredible project and journey to follow with Ben. And then some music videos. Always getting to work with local bands is super cool. Noam Chomsky was the band we worked with recently.
Oh, I love them.
You know them?
I know them. I've seen them a few times at shooters. The younger guys like yourself, they're great. They're fantastic, and I love the chance to see them whenever they're in town. Yeah,
so my buddy John Strahl is good friends with their drummer. He knows the band. He was the director on the project. I work with him a ton. He also directed our 48-hour film, and he got Best Director for that. So a very talented guy. So he knew the band, he got the connection, and then we got to do our first music video together working with them, and that was just a ton of fun because, music videos, there's not really rules like there are in films. You get to be creative and think outside the box.
Very cool. How was shooting that music video? Where'd you do it at? In Windsor, LaSalle?
Yeah, that was mostly Windsor, actually entirely very, very local, like close to downtown Windsor. I believe the office location we used was the Business Accelerator. I might be wrong on that. But it was kind of an office building that we used for the opening shot, if anybody's seen that music video. And then we were at the Windsor Film Center, which is taken over the Old Mission, the church that's downstairs downtown on Victoria Street. So that was just a really great, like, big space that we could work in and kind of be creative in. And so that's where our main performance stuff was done, as well as a little feature of the old house I used to live in, where we did our absolute best to make it dark, moody, nighttime exteriors where you could not tell that that was my house. It just looked like a generic kitchen that this guy was eating some alphagettis in.
Very cool. I got to check that out. I love Noam Chomsky. It's always a pleasure to see them. Going back to your achievements, huge list of them. Might be a tough question for you. What would you say is your biggest achievement to date?
There's two that stand out. The first one would have been my first award, and that was a doc called The Box of Life that I filmed up in Ottawa on a gentleman named Akil. He does something called vermicomposting, which is essentially composting with worms. So in a city like here in Windsor, where we don't necessarily compost, it's this kind of like compostable box. It's got worms. It doesn't smell. It doesn't stink. It's kind of aesthetic if you got that kind of trendy, very hipster vibe going on. And basically you can throw your food scraps in there and it gets composted. Then you just take the bin out and toss basically what's created dirt out into the yard, and it's this amazing fertile soil. So that was the first film I won an award with.
Wow.
I won, I don't think it's best documentary. I think it was best short film, actually. Not even restricted to the documentary category, out at the Outer Banks Environmental Film Festival. I was expecting nothing of it. My dad always wanted to go out there, so he was like, yo,
Wow.
submit it to this festival. And I'm like, okay, are we going to go? And he's like, you know what, let's make a trip out of it. And so we decided to go. The festival was incredible, and then we ended up winning an award that I got to share with my parents. And I do have to mention that was co-directed with a gentleman named Manuel. He's from Ottawa, one of my good friends. And so that was incredible working with him. I can't take the credit entirely for that one. And then, like I mentioned, Proving Grounds, the 48-hour Flick Fest film, because that cinematography award has been something I've been working to for so long, and to kind of finally get that felt very validating, you know, that you're heading in the right direction, you're doing well in what you're doing, and as well just the crew I was working with too. For John, his first Best Directing, we won Best Picture, which is a huge award, Audience Choice, which is kind of like the non-technical Best Director. It meant that the people that we were showing our film to, the audience, they loved it and they vibed with it as well as Best Editing, and I believe it was Best Use of Flickfest dialogue. So they give you a line that you have to use, and we had Best Incorporated.
Very cool. Wow, what a list so far.
Thank you.
All great stories too, especially, you know, the Outer Banks Festival. That's awesome. What a memory with your parents. That's awesome. And you won too, which is incredible.
Yeah, I genuinely did not expect that. I was out there for the trip. It was going to be fun. We're going to go watch the film at the festival, check out some other things, and then next thing I know, I'm being called up and told that we won again best short film of the entire festival, and there were some very good ones in there. So I appreciate the award and thank you to them.
Surreal moment. I love it. Well, we're going to take a break here on the Berg. When we come back, I'm going to chat more cinematography stuff with Ben. You don't want to miss this. Stay tuned. Hello again, everybody. Spencer Duby here on CKBG The Berg. We are joined by Ben Cheer, one of the local cinematographers that is making a huge name for himself in this area. Ben, how you doing? Welcome back to the show.
I'm doing well. Thank you.
This has been fun so far. I've enjoyed learning, you know, your trait and learning about the awards you've won, the different film festivals you've gone to. That is very cool, something to be very proud of. You have presented for local youth about cinematography and film. What do you enjoy taking part in community activities and engaging youth to follow their interest in filmmaking?
That's a big question. Well, honestly, it's more so the fact that the film community here in Windsor is such a incredible community. Mm-hmm. It is so different than anything else I have seen or experienced. I've mentioned the 48-hour Flick Fest before, and that's such a prime example of that, because you compete and you compete and you compete, and you have, you know, you get competitive with other guys. You tell, oh, our film's going to be better, we're going to win, right? But then at the end of the day, whoever wins, you're happy for that person. Yeah. Right? It's not that I'm mad that someone else won an award that I didn't or anything like that. You're like, that was incredible. You did some awesome work, and then you shake their hand, and then you go try and get them next year, kind of thing. So that's part of it, is that the community here is really amazing, and we all need each other. It's we have such a small, tight-knit crew, I guess, of people working in this industry here that, you know, one week I might be the lead on a project, and then the next week I'm the assistant to the guy who was my assistant, kind of thing, right? So we all help each other out, get each other work. So that's a big part of it. And for youth, it's just because it's not a common field, right? It's not something that you necessarily get taught or learn about in school, but I think for the most part, everyone can say they enjoy a movie, a film, or a TV series. And so it's not so much to push people to, oh, you should do this as a career. It's definitely a tough career and one you have to love to be in. But it's giving people the opportunity to learn about it, to make that decision of whether they like it and to truly understand it the best they can. Because, you know, like I briefed kind of at the beginning of the show, like there's so much more to cinematography and there's so much more to filmmaking and than just like one person, right? You hear about the director that's, oh, so-and-so made this incredible film, but it's like they usually on the big stuff have a crew of 100+ people working for them to bring their vision to life.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with, helping people learn and understand about it. Just let them know, right? Put it out there. This is what I do. This is some of the behind the scenes that you might not know, instead of just the actors, the directors, the camera person, whatever the case may be, right? I love it. Like I said, I think it's the most underrated part of film.
And even at a bare minimum, right? For someone who has never seen a film happen, if it's something you're curious about or you're interested in, like coming out to assist for a day and getting to see that process, maybe it's because I work in the industry, but I think that's pretty cool too.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. What are some of your long-term goals? Another tough question for you.
Not too tough, actually.
Yeah.
I've kind of given myself...
You got a plan, and I like that.
I have a loose plan. There's holes that need to be filled out in it, but I can tell you I've worked mostly on short projects right now, but my 3 to 5 year goal within this industry is to shoot a feature-length documentary. My goal is to be a documentary cinematographer. Maybe at some point I'll switch into more narrative work, but I really enjoy being able to work with people, and so the kind of pinnacle of being able to make it, air quotes, for me as a cinematographer or director of photography, which is kind of an interchangeable term, would be to be the director of photography on a 90-minute plus feature-length documentary. So that's the goal that I'm working towards right now.
Very cool. I like that. You touched on it earlier, how Windsor's different than Ottawa and, the different festivals, the way things are. What can you say about the Windsor-Essex filmmaking community and the uniqueness it poses? Because, you said you're already a tight-knit group of guys, but what about the uniqueness down here? What can you say other than the different compost comparisons? What's it like here compared to Ottawa for filming?
Funny enough, I can't actually speak much to Ottawa. I haven't done too much work there, especially like at the crew level where I would have worked with other people, but comparing it to a bigger city like Toronto or something like that, where I've done a little bit of work, it's the fact that we all need each other. We all work together. We all need each other to learn and to grow. But also the fact that we have, it's not just a small city with a few guys that kind of make films. Like we have a very strong, very talented group of people, students coming out of the University of Windsor, very strong network of people that can actually produce very high-level products. And we've seen that with some of the feature films that have happened down here, and we've seen that with the development in our community. For example, we have a gentleman here named Tim, and he's our local gaffer. He's got a 20-foot grip truck of just lighting equipment and gear and anything that you need to elevate your production. It's been one of the biggest things that's helped our community grow, and that's in Toronto. There's hundreds of these guys, right? But in Windsor, we got our one Tim, so we know we got to take care of him, right? And use him to the best of our abilities because he's there to make us look better. And so it's just that. One of my buddies likes to say, rising tides raises all ships type thing. So when we work together and we elevate the level of quality that we as Windsor community create as a whole, rather than fighting each other, our community just grows and we do better, right? Helping someone else helps you do better.
Mm-hmm. It's friendly competition, right? Like, I'm going to win. But like you said, you know what? If you don't win and someone that you worked with does, or even if it's someone that you haven't worked with, you're just happy for them. That's the way the community is here.
Yes, exactly.
I love it. Well, we're going to go to another break here. Thanks, Ben, for all your answers so far. We'll be right back to continue this interview with Benjamin Cheer after this song break. Hello again, everybody. You're tuned into 107.9 FM The Berg. I'm your host, Spencer Duby, and today we have in the studio been chatting with Benjamin Cheer. He's been giving us some insight into life behind the camera. It's been very interesting and very cool to learn all about cinematography and different projects Ben's worked on and awards he's won. Very outstanding list so far. Ben, last weekend you had the pleasure of being in the studio as director of photography. That's awesome. Behind the scenes for our docu-series. This project was new to you. What could you tell us about your experience that day?
That day was a lot. There was a lot we covered, but what was really cool is that I'd only had a very minor brief going into it. Obviously, you guys have been doing a lot of work on this project over, I think, the last couple of months, correct?
Oh, even longer. This has been something that's been going on since, I want to say last summer.
Okay, yeah. So you guys have been working on that for a while. I only came in for the day, but Gavin and I had been talking, and this was actually the first time I had worked as his cinematographer. Mm-hmm. And we'd been chatting, found out that I want to mostly specialize in documentaries, and that's kind of the direction I'm heading and working in right now. And he said, "Hey, do you want to come out? I'm doing my main interviews for the day. Why don't you come shoot these for me if that's something you're interested in?" And I was like, that would be awesome. Doing a docu-series, the Bell 5 series is obviously something that's really awesome that we have here locally. I know some friends that got it when they were more Windsor focused. Now they're Amherstburg. So yeah, I thought that was an incredible chance to go shoot some interviews. And honestly, something kind of funny about that is I felt like I was kind of in a little bit of a slump with my interview setups and how I did that as a cinematographer. I felt I was getting a little too copy-paste. And that day was just an incredible boot camp of, hey, we have to film 9 interviews in 4 rooms, and they each need to look different. And for people that kind of don't really realize how hard that is, when you have, how big is this room? Must be like 12 by 12 or so, maybe a bit bigger.
Something like that.
Yeah. And so when you have a room that size and you have to come up with like 3 different looks, like it's really stretching you and really forcing you to be creative. A philosophy that I've often heard is, when you walk into a room, whatever your first instinct is, do something else. And that applies to anything creative, right? If you're doing a drawing, a painting, whatever, it's whatever your first instinct is. If you want to get better at being creative, try something else. Mm-hmm. And so walked into one of the rooms. It's like, cool, we got to do 3 interviews here. So now it wasn't just do your first instinct. It was, you have to do your second instinct and then find something else as well. Do a third one. And so that was such a fun challenge for me as a cinematographer, was to just shake it up, do something creative, try something different. And for especially the pace we had to move at that day to make sure that we gave time to all our interviewees to really share their story, I think we did an incredible job of creating some diversity and beautiful imagery to complement the work that's already been happening.
But you enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it.
That's the most important thing.
Yes. It's always fun working with different people and getting to hear their stories, and I wish I could have had a little bit more background, so it's almost like I could have tailored what each interview was to that person, but obviously there's time constraints on everything when you're working in film.
Mm-hmm. How did you meet Gavin? Did you reach out to him? Did he get in touch with you? Did you meet at a WIF, or what happened? What's the story?
So I actually met Gavin through a common friend who you guys actually know, Ken Amlin.
Oh, yeah.
He's a director of photography, cinematographer in the city that he as well has been gaining some... becoming very popular in Windsor, doing some incredible projects, getting a lot of those feature films, the type of stuff I want to be doing.
He's doing something right now, like Tales of the South Shore?
Yeah. That's another Bell 5 project that I believe is Chatham-based. So Ken's incredibly talented. He's one of the people I looked up to starting my career, and I actually got to meet him a little bit before I say he kind of, I don't want to say blew up. Ken's always been very well known and very well talented, but with a lot of the people in the Windsor film scene, kind of before it started growing, I kind of met him a little bit earlier as a student. He let me come out and shoot on a project with him. And then a few years later, I think it was just after I graduated, he asked me to come assist on a short film. And that was shot at Scarehouse, which obviously Gavin is very well affiliated with. Gavin was there. And so Gavin, I actually met kind of at the very beginning of me starting what I would consider my professional career as a filmmaker in the city. And then, fast forward to earlier this year, I was, again, actually helping Ken on a project he was DPing, and I was assisting him on, and Gavin was there, and so we started chatting on that, and then we met again a few weeks later, and that's when he offered this job to me after finding out that documentary cinematography is really where I wanted to focus.
Well, it's great to have you a part of the team for this docu-series, Ben.
Thank you. I'm actually stoked to be part of this project.
Yeah.
Like I said, I didn't know much going into it, but I got to unravel the stories throughout the day as I interviewed with you guys and almost kind of piece it together in my head, and learning the story of the station and Marty, who he was, the legend that Marty was, because that's not something I knew before, was incredible and fascinating and like so much more interesting than I ever thought a doc on a small local radio station could be.
Yeah, pretty wild backstory, eh?
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah. You've learned a lot. This is awesome, man. It's great to have you in the area. We're glad you came to Windsor.
Honestly, I've loved my time here. People say that Windsor's just a small town, but I think it hits way above its weight class. It's been incredible.
Yeah, they're fighters. So yeah, the weight class is a good analogy. Ben, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. It has been an absolute pleasure to hear from you, learn from you, and just chatting with you in general. Very knowledgeable. Obviously, this is something you're very passionate about. And as I mentioned earlier, it's great to have you on board.
Thank you so much. It's been great being here.
Benjamin Cheer, everybody. Spencer Duby here on The Berg. Hope you enjoyed that interview.